Chapter 10, Inspection Testing. So the testing of the working connection of the locomotive may be divided into two main categories. The testing of the materials which for the engine is constructed, testing of the trails function of the locomotive. Testing and inspection material. This is done with the outlet to work with the various manufacturers of the place and bars of the axles, tires, etc. to provide with the facilities to shape the testing machinery within which the specimen and outcome of the material are broken. The physical behavior noted of the railway companies. The materials are for you in the country for the consulting engineer, but the engines are built in the broad. Everything the representative for the inspector the work for the manufactured path of the material for the acceptance for the test to prove it is satisfactory. Reject then don't come up with specified requirements. Alright, sorry about that. I can't handle something. Let's get back to reading. Alright, tensile test. The most important physical test known as the tensile test of the piece of the plate over the machine with a definite rectangle with a circular with the form dimensions grid and placed in the jaw of the testing machine. The specimen is then pulled with the direction action of the hydraulic cylinder with the putting of the counterbalance with the measure of it along the steel yard with the moist of the three there are movable weight. After the center time of the big pace begin with the stretch of the first time of the measured piece with the pair with the compass which have been set with a definite specified length of the 2 to 10 inches according to the test specimen. Length is marked on the specimen before the test is begin with the point at which the first time permanently stretched or the observer the term of the yield point with the stretch with the denote for the limit of the perfect elasticity of the material that has been tested past the position of the weight of the steel yard at the moment the recorded with the pulling of the cooling continued with the specimen break the position with the weight with the being noted again. The steel yard is marked directly in tons, so the position of the weight show for the further calculation of the total number of tons divided with the known with the original with the section of the specimen of the square inch to give the yield point with the ultimate break strength of the material in tons per square inch. Yet just before the specimen breaks it pulls apart somewhat with the manner of the piece of the top with the expansion of the length over the specimen as which originally also with the contraction over the air with the broken also recorded within given the measured ductility of the material. The inspection testing table 1 show the utility strength and the maximum permissible elongation of the most important material for the locomotive of the construction. Table 1 strength materials name and use of the material utility ultimate strength of tons per square inch percentage of the elongation of the original length and not less than. Spring steel is not usually tested tensile strength, but the spring is subject to the rapid deflection test. Bending test. Other tests specified included the cold bend and tempered bend of the test within the form of specimen with a cut-up plate for double over the cold with the internal radius of the non-greater than the thickness of the plate with the test piece with the same without fracture with the temper bending with the similar with the piece with the heat of the forehand of the red hot quench. And water temperature with the not exceeding 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The rivets are tested bent in the cold until they are completely doubled without the fracture and the heads of the hammered flat without cracking. The specified tensile for the bending of the testing test differ with according to the material concerned within the case of the plate, but there is also a sufficient excess for the material size for which the test specimens can be cut with each of the plate. The test if required in case of the straight axles and the test tires are tested in instruction with the inspector select any of the 2% with the number ordered with the quality with the whole lot is decided with the behavior so it's selected. Alright, the impact test. In addition with the tensile bending of the test axle, the tires is rejected with the following weight test for the test axle of the plate for the pound the bearings which are played with the distance upon apart with the bearing with the 3 foot with the axle 4 inches the diameter of the century to the 5 foot for axle 6 inches more diameter with the weight of the 1 ton with the drop of the century with the axle with the height with the bearing with the 16 feet with the 4 inches with the axle 35 feet with the 6 inches larger axle. The axle is under the same with the 5 such blows without breaking and under the first blow with the bends within the turn until the receive the next blow with them being repeated each time that it ends. The test of the axle is finally broken. The tires are tested similar manner being played for the edge with a 1 ton weight with it being dropped on the then from heights of 10 to 15 to 20 foot until the tires deflect until under the blow of the specified amount without breaking. Your chemical test. Each railway company has an additional mechanical testing shop as well as an equipped laboratory with a sample of the above material to analyze with the chemical testing and not to specify with the materials beyond the limits amount of the sulfur, the force, and the seal of the both will deteriorate. The leaderess. This boilerplates must now show with about 0.05% of either of these elements. In the case of the spring tire the axles, these limits are produced at 0.035%. Copper fireblocks plates are specified to contain 0.25 and 0.55% arsenic, which are valuable property for the reducing wear of the server. The trial trips of the completed locomotive, the contrary with what must be supposed the new locomotives do not expect with the special circumstances undergo the elaborate tests, such as usual large marine and middle engine for the engine with the rail companies work with immediately the trial run for some 20 to 25 miles without the train. During the trail with the working of the motion spring with the brakes for the injector sand gear with the noted with the carefully with the big end of the axle box bearing with the making must run perfectly cool with that must be no leakage to any of the joints with which the fittings motion on the top of the boilers or attached. Everything is not satisfactory. Noted with rectification when the engine returned to the second trial may occasionally be necessary, especially in the case of the engine with a new class. Finally, within everything in the satisfactory, the engine sent to the paint shop to be tinted. The express engine is not one for the set with the work with the fast train with about 3 weeks and is employed with the local stopping passenger train at the shed with the work with is situated. This gives the engine opportunity to find its bearings and if defects which may follow themselves are rectified afterwards. The engine tried with the week of the two of the fastest trains and then ready for the regular service sent away with the allotted station. An engine which has come out of the work that repairs undergoes exactly the same routine. Our special testing service is usually rotated and they're made with the service line with the engine working. The juvenile train in general, such tests consist of the long daily service extending over the period of several weeks with the general undertaking when they desire to estimate over the coal and the oil consumption. Newly altered last for the engine is ordered to compare the result with those given by the engine and existing classes which have hitherto being worked at the same train. For the purpose of the records are kept the weight of each of the train, the miles run, and the time of the gain and loss, from which the actual average specified speeds can be calculated of the amounts of the coal burnt, oil used, the data of the tabulated each day. The result of the compared carefully with the minor alteration of the new engine may be given the result of the trial. The British engineers generally prefer the form of the extended road test since they give the result of the commercial working condition. The test may be elaborated, include the dynamometer car with the train attached with immediately behind with the tender with the description of the continuous record of the bowl of the engine with the tender drawbar. Same time, indicator diagrams are taken with the interval and the indicator for the horsepower for the calculated with the indicator diagrams for the compared. The use of the full horsepower, useful horsepower calculated for the drawbar registered with the dynamometer gives the measure for the efficiency of the engine. Tractive force and horsepower. It may be explained with the power of the locomotive, not of the marine and stationary engine, for the estimate of the horsepower based by the locomotive. The tractive force for the horsepower involved the speed of the train with the various continuity, the resistance due to the load with the various continuity with the gradients curve of the line with the one the horsepower is given the moment can of course be calculated with indicator diagrams of the vary greatly through the journey of the unit with the convenient one with the locomotives. Alright, figure 45 shows a locomotive testing plant. Coal consumption. Coal consumption varies greatly with the class of the engine, weight of the train, with the gradients of the weather, and speed of the express of the engine may be running anything from about 25 to 50 pounds of coal per mile, except experiments for the midline of the rail, whether the main line with which for the heavier the gradients show for the average consumption during the current certain test with about 0.7 to 0.16 per ton 2 mile, the different engine trains. Testing plant. Another modern form of the test plane with the mentioned briefly with this made in the wet test and the works for the test plane with the conditions being such with approximately near the top of the road test of the engine is placed over the special pivot in such a way that the couple of the wheels the drive with the friction and other set with the wheels or axles fixed across the pivot, but the engine can run under its own steam at any speed desired with it. The drawbar of the bull is measured with a special apparatus for the back of the coal, water, and oil consumption. Certain speed with a definite length of the time is measured and recorded. The form of the test plane was extremely valuable, the experimental purpose of the American origin, but the only one of the country of the Great Western work in Sweden. Illustration is given in Figure 45. Chapter 11, Locomotive Maintenance and Repairs.